Hey everybody, what's going on? Happy Thanksgiving week. We're back to talk about another exciting episode from Survivor 47 live right after the episode. And we have got a great roundtable here with us to talk about because it's the holidays. We got a lot of room at the table and we have two great guests here to talk about this episode here with us. First, of course, a guy who knows a little bit about being a challenge threat that people have get their eyes fixated on. It's Hunter McKnight.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, and then also with us tonight, another big threat from Survivor 46 that people got locked in on, of course. Also from the top 8, it's Tiffany Nicole Ervin.
Hey guys.
Yeah. This is so fun. I haven't done this at all with two people from the same season after the episode. So I'm very excited to hear what you both have to say.
It felt like deja vu watching this episode. I'm not going to lie to you.
It did. It felt like both of our exits combined.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that this is a great spot in the game to talk to you both. And so I'd love, very excited to hear your insight on what we've seen so far and, why we're in this position that we're in right now. We're live on Wednesday night. We've got the chat going and we're going to take questions later on in the show from the chat. So if you have them, we're going to flag them and take them later on in the episode. Little bit of a interesting schedule always with Thanksgiving, with the fall season. So we are going to have our exit interview with Kyle. That's going to come up on Monday. So everybody's off for the long weekend. So we'll have our exit interview coming up with Kyle on Monday. It'll be a busy Friday for us. We're going to take Thursday off, and then we'll have the Survivor Know-It-Alls with Steven at 3 p.m. on Friday. And then I will also do the patron Q&A with everybody earlier in the day, 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday for the patron Q&A. So that's the schedule for events for the next couple of days. But yeah, let's start because I think that we're in this really interesting spot in the game and kind of in the new era where it's really this matchup of the players that have sort of been identified as the threats. And it's like, well, you all are the threats. You have to go now. Okay. So, and all of us that we have deemed not the threats, we are going to stay. One of us will be the winner, but you were too threatening in the earlier part of the game. And so now you all have to go. And we have the majority. And it looks like it's set up to be like a pagonging of the non-threats versus the threats. And I have to say, the gameplay is right, but it does feel like that it's maybe not the most fun outcome that we could be having with a Survivor season.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It does remind me. So you remember the infamous 6, right? The from 46 that went absolutely.
Sorry, 6.
The Secret 6 Alliance. The goal of that originally was to prevent this thing from happening, of like, if the threats stick together, then when we get to the end, it can just be the threats. But then immediately the threats are like, actually, I don't think I want to do that.
That's a
we're all sort of firing
all the Spider-Man meme, just point at each other.
Exactly. And whenever I went back and thought about the gay vote with Kyle and the flashback and this weird rivalry that happened between them right before it, Kyle said pretty soon into the episode that Gabe's threat level is growing and my threat level is growing, so I have to vote Gabe out. And whenever you stop, you say, okay, he's a threat, but you get into this position where the threats are now in trouble because they decide, if you're threatening, I'm going to take you out. It just leaves the threats in a vulnerable spot. And that's what happened with at least our last season with Tiffany and with me and with Q and with a lot of them and it's not necessarily that these people are more threatening or better at the game, but they've just been perceived that way. And that perception becomes a reality. And it's like a stigma and a plague where if you can't get it off quick, you're in trouble. Yeah.
It's just like Genevieve said, once you get that threat stamp, it does not wash off.
Yeah. And Tiffany, I couldn't help thinking when I was watching the episode about how and we saw that Kyle and Sam and Genevieve were just sitting there in the shelter. And it's like, well, there's nothing that we can do. And it makes me think back to last week. Was it the wrong move for them to have voted out Gabe, who was also the biggest threat. Yeah.
It was. This is like, when I say deja vu, this is literally deja vu. This is exactly what we did. And Genevieve kind of had that same realization that we all had, except she had it in real time and not at Ponderosa. She said, we need to start getting out the people that are getting dragged to the end. The Sues, the Andys. I mean, even though, no knock on Andy's game, because I think he's playing a great game. He's just playing a very low profile game. But I think even in that moment, it's too little too late. She should have said that 2 episodes ago, because it would have got a little bit more steam. And to be quite honest, this is exactly the same play. All the threats, they're beefing up against each other, because even at the end, Kyle and Genevieve, they turned on each other. Me and Hunter, we turned on each other. And I'm like, nope, you got to go before I do. And it's like, literally, he went. And if history is to be repeated, Genevieve is probably going next week. It's
gonna be soon. And that's literally, like, when I was taking the notes, her thinking was absolutely perfect. Like, we've got to get rid of these people that are just gonna fill up spots, because they're taking spots that could be ours, because no one wants to vote them out now. Yeah. But the thing is, they waited too long for that. They started taking out threats. They should have thought of that before.
3 episodes ago.
But it's too late now.
The train is moving, and all the not threats, they banded together. And at this point, their numbers are dwindling. Shout out to Genevieve for having that realization, at least while she's still on the island, because me and Hunter was high-fiving each other at Ponderosa. Like, yeah, we sure should have did that. Like, too late.
Okay, well, I want to keep this about Survivor 47, but I have to know. So, what for the two of you, other than not voting out Hunter, was there a point in the game that you two should have done something different?
Yes, we had a conversation about it, and we didn't do anything about it, and they never aired it. Me and Hunter realized that we were being pitted against each other by Q, and we're like, "You never said that? You never said that?" And by that point, we were already had the biggest targets on our back, so it was too late. But there was definitely a point.
The episode where Q confessed that he wanted to go home after winning everyone's game, he went to Tiffany and told Tiffany that I had told everyone about her idol. And so it just like Sue and Kyle, that huge wedge that gets driven there, it's hard to overcome that. And from the time that Q told Tiffany that to the time I was voted out was less than 24 hours. And so there's not time to try to repair things like that. And so whenever there's someone in the middle that's saying this and this, it's really hard to get it figured out in that amount of time. And Tiffany had no reason to believe me when I'm alone on the island. And so there's nothing to convince now. And so it takes a bunch of forethought and foreplanning. And that's what Genevieve is seeing here. To get ahead of this happening. And Kyle is realizing that. He went back and forth in multiple things he said in the confessionals of I don't want to get threats out. Actually, I wanted to get a threat out because it was Gabe. And then he says, well, now us three that are left, we can't get each other out because we're the only threats left. And it just it's hard because it's moving so quickly, but you have to see it beforehand. Otherwise, it's just going to steamroll into something you can't control.
Now, not to blame Gabe for this, but I kind of feel like that Gabe was the person who needed to be out a little bit more in front of this, because I feel like that Gabe should have seen that, okay, well, they're going to come for me. And he talked about, I need to get past 9. If I get past 9, I'm going to be home free. But I think that he was a little bit more, and maybe a lot of people say that.
Yeah, that's
literally, I was thinking about it in the 10, if I just get past 8, it's going, next thing you know, on the boat.
But Gabe was very much, I'm loyal to Sue. I'm loyal to Caroline. I'm going to go to the final 3 with them. Does he need to pivot and say, hold on, I'm a threat. Maybe I need to team up with the other threats. And I think that he was maybe just holding on to hope that, okay, Sue and Caroline are going to be loyal to me. So if I can just get past this point, I've got my loyal people that I'm going to take to the end. But he's got to know, hey, you're one of the threats, that they're going to come for you.
Wasn't there a moment that him and Genevieve talk?
Yes.
And they're both it's me or you because we're threats. And it's the writing is there because Kyle feels the same way. It's you talk to Kyle, you talk to Genevieve, you grab Sue and Caroline, and that's 5 that you can work with now. But it was just, I mean, you get so focused in it and it's moving so fast. It's sometimes hard to take a step back and say, this is what's about to happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the position that they're in now and what they could do now, because that this was a night that was all about Rachel, and Rachel had a phenomenal night. She goes on the journey. She ends up being, solidifying this alliance. She wins immunity. So all great things for Rachel. But I couldn't help think that coming out of this episode, that is Rachel actually with the wrong group of people? Should Rachel be like, has Rachel now come out as one of the threat people? Tiffany, you shake your head no.
No. Rachel is exactly where Rachel needs to be, because she's part of the underdog crew. Nobody is looking at Rachel as a threat. Nobody knows what she has in her pocket. Nobody knows all the things that she's done. And she's keeping quiet and letting the big dogs fight it out and let people point their arrows at the bigger targets until it's too late. And nobody's going to realize that she's actually the biggest dog on the beach until it's too late.
Yeah, it's where perception's everything. And Rachel has to keep hammering Genevieve and Sam are the threats. They have to be gone.
What happens after that?
Right.
Exactly. Can she win out from 5? Is that the plan?
Well,
she doesn't have to. She has an idol.
She has an idol.
That's true. Idol. And I think she's doing a great job.
She didn't have to use it tonight.
Yeah, she's doing a great job with Andy as well. Andy and Teeny, because there's this other side of, if they get to 5, there's Sue and Caroline, who are obviously going to be very close. She is in a great spot right now. That if she can hold that, she's got a lot of chips in her hand. And even her sharing that information with Sue this episode, man, it's like everything is falling perfectly for Rachel, at least this episode, where Sue is like in love with her. Like, she's like, I am all for you now. Yeah. It's like, man, she's in a perfect spot.
She's had such an interesting ride after the merge, because she came into the merge as kind of a big target for people. Like, a lot of people felt like that she was somebody who they really had an eye on. And then she escaped that tribal council when Saul gave her the safety without power. She ends up doing the shot in the dark thing and doesn't have to play her idol. But Tiffany, it seems like that she's kind of got back under the radar where people aren't so worried about her. But I worry has she made herself the biggest threat out of the perceived non-threats?
Not at all. I don't think that. I think the good thing that Rachel is doing, and one thing that I really admire about her, is that Rachel is keeping quiet. Rachel has been having all these lucky breaks. She has these advantages. The only thing that people know right now is that she has a block of vote, and that's the type of advantage that, like, when you have a group of underdogs that are solely focused on getting out big targets, it's like, yeah, we could all work together. That's for all of us. They don't know about her idol. Half of them still don't know that Saul is the one who saved her. These lucky breaks and this momentum that she has, she's doing a great job minimizing it. And she's boosting other people up. She's making people like Andy feel like, oh yeah, like you're so great. So that by the time the big threats are out, Andy's going to be looking at himself like, dang, now I'm the biggest threat on the beach. He has no idea that Rachel really is.
Yeah. Hunter, were you surprised that Rachel and Sam are not on the same page at all now? Because it seemed to me, like, even coming out of last week, that I thought Rachel and Sam were still working together.
Yeah, so their relationship has been weird to follow, because at the beginning, when it was just them on a tribe, they were kind of separated. And then whenever Rachel realized she was in a tough spot, she was like trying to ingratiate herself back with him and with Andy and with Sierra there for a little bit. But as she's seen that he's been, ostracized as a threat, she's kind of like moved away more and found her own vein with, we saw the preview for the next episode where they're saying, hey, we're going to have 4 girls in the final 4. And like, she is playing every card really, really well. It has been weird how she's kind of separated herself from him, but it makes sense, especially whenever she's working so closely with Andy, and Andy was obviously a little bit upset with how he was treated by Sam and Sierra.
This is something that came up in the episode that I couldn't wait to ask you both about. That Genevieve talked about how back at the Keyshawn vote, that Keyshawn said, Genevieve, I trusted you. And she, it killed her that to have that betrayal happen. She said after that, I'm going to be the villain that people didn't really get close to, so I can do what I need to do in this game and not have to betray
Terrible
people.
move, horrible mistake. I don't know why she said that out loud.
Well, she said it in the confessional. She said it in the confessional.
Girl, but then she said that at tribal too.
I don't know what she was doing at Tribal Council. I wonder if Tribal Council, I feel like that, is this like a little bit shades of Q? Is like, does Genevieve not want to be here anymore?
Yeah, I think she's realizing she's in a rough spot, but I think there's also some foreshadowing in this of her saying, I'm a villain that makes no connections, is like the perfect person. Like Rachel is savvy enough to see if she burns enough bridges and cuts ties enough, because in terms of the people in the jury right now, I don't think Genevieve has many friends.
Yeah.
And so she is becoming that villain that has no connections. And so someone savvy like Rachel can say, hey, well, actually, I'm going to take you. I mean, I don't know what happens in the next episode, but it does look like things are about to get stirred up. And Genevieve is an extremely savvy player, and I could see her making it through a few more, but I don't think she has the equity with the jury to actually win. And so it felt like foreshadowing.
You think so? I feel the opposite. I feel like it's kind of like, well, you know what? I can't really say, because the jury has been kind of hard to read. You never really know where the jury's heads are at until they start talking, because it could be a situation where the jury does the exact opposite of what we think, and they get up there and they're like, wow, y'all let this girl get all the way to the end. Are y'all dumb? Votes. Like, you never really know. That's what I would do. Like, y'all crazy.
Well, I wanted to ask you both, though, about this idea that, that Genevieve had to betray somebody that, she really had this emotional connection with. And I was thinking back to Survivor 46, and from my recollection, I feel like that neither of you really had to do that to somebody that you really had a great connection with in the game. And, the votes that you made were votes that you had to make, but it wasn't necessarily that either of you had to make that big backstabby betrayal of a person that you cared about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the closest would be with Tevin and me not doing enough to try to save him or using my idol for him. But that wasn't like blood wasn't on my hands in that. And so, no, I didn't feel that.
I think we was getting more of the stabs in the back than we were stabbing people in the back.
Right.
Because for me, all of my moves and like all of my like backstabby or like rifts with like alliance members happen because they wronged me first. So it's like, oh, you get me? Well, I'm going to try my best to get my lick back. In the end, I didn't get the lick back, but I can't really relate to feeling sad because I really betrayed somebody that I cared about, but also that's the game. Yeah. Like, you knew what you signed up for.
Well, I just think it was so interesting to hear from Genevieve that, she thought she could do that. She could make these connections and then just betray people. And then after she, got a taste of what that was like, she's really had to kind of change her approach in the game. And I, can't really think of too many other players that have sort of like mid-game said that they're going to, start changing up what they're doing because it's too hard.
I think that might come back to bite her in the butt, though. I know Hunter made a great point when he said that, like, it's about the jury connections, but outwardly saying I'm no longer going to use emotions when it comes to this game is basically putting up on everybody's radar. Okay, like, she's moving and operating like a robot, so I can no longer touch her on like a personal level. I can't connect with you on that level where I can really build rapport and trust, because you just told me that that's not what you out here to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say Genevieve has been hard to read the whole time. She just kind of like bounces back and forth. It doesn't feel like she's had many connections before. Like, she kind of let Rome go like it was nothing. She let Soul go like it was nothing. Like it was like, Genevieve would be a scary one to play with just because of how savvy she is and how quick she is to cut ties.
Yeah.
But I think it's great.
Would she be even more scarier if she could also, give you that warmth?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of a player that I can attribute that to. And I don't know if there's really anybody that's standing out like this season per se, but to have somebody with that much game level intelligence and then be able to like attach that emotional manipulation aspect to it, they're a very dangerous player.
Yeah. Let's talk about the decision about Kyle versus Genevieve that came up in the episode, because you had these 5 people, the Underdog Alliance, who is trying to decide, okay, do we want to vote out Kyle? Do we want to vote out Genevieve? Of course, we know Sue, that she was drooling over getting the chance to vote out Kyle in this episode, and Caroline wants to sort of like patch things up with Sue and give her that. But then there's also the contingent of Andy and Rachel, more so in wanting to vote out the Genevieve from the game. Did they make the right decision to vote out Kyle? I
personally would have voted out Genevieve if I was in that position.
No, ain't no way, because you voted me out.
Because I was the Genevieve and you were Kyle, so I had to rush
the
game
choice.
Yeah, that's true.
But if I was the other people,
Q was Genevieve in this scenario. But I will say, time will tell on, because the thing is, the right choice is subjective to who you're looking at, the lens through. I did love Andy's breakdown of it. Probably my favorite part of the whole episode, because he was throwing out statistics that I don't think most people would appreciate. Because his point was,
were they accurate though, or was he?
They were. I did it. I did the math.
You did the math. Oh my God!
6.25%.
6.25% when playing the field, and it wasn't that he would win again. It was that he would win all the way into final 3. Yeah. And so, I respect.
All right, Hunter, can I question you on Andy's math? Because doesn't that presume that there is that Kyle has, like, everybody has an equal chance of winning? That I feel like that math sort of like presumes that it's almost like you're playing some game of like spin a wheel, and then how many times is it going to come up Kyle, when Kyle has shown his acumen in these challenges, and that he's better at these challenges than everybody else. So I don't think you could just do it as like 1 out of 6, 1 out of 5.
I would actually no. So it wasn't 1 out of 6. It was based on his previous probability of how he's performed in challenges against everyone so far. Yeah. And so he's won 4 challenges, but he's only won 2 of those against the whole group. The other times he's gone against the whole group were 2 other times, and he lost both of those. And so that's where he got the 2 out of 4 against the whole group. There is other things that come into play in that. Number one is you have to make sure you keep strong competitors in, and they've already voted Gabe out. So that messes up the probability. But also, and this is where I wish Andy would have pointed it out, is Kyle has won in very specific types of challenges, both balance and some endurance, but they're all about to shift. And that's what I was dying to get to in my season. If I can get past this body weight stuff, I will be so much better suited. And
you would have been better.
I would have been better than having to hold up my weight on that cross thing. It was not working. But I think it is an interesting point for Andy to make, and it's worth pushing. This is something that Andy's able to do. We'll quote Genevieve, where Genevieve says she can look past the noise to hear the news. There is so much noise about Kyle is winning immunity. Kyle's winning immunity. Kyle. So it's just is that the biggest thing on the block? But and I'll reference Charlie from last year or last season. Charlie did a good job of realizing truths that would be the same throughout. She realized that Maria wanted Tiffany out. Maria wants Tiffany out ASAP, but he kept delaying that because he knew that would be true through the whole season. Andy knows Sue wants Kyle out, and that is a fact that is not going to change. And whenever you have truths like that in Survivor, the longer you can keep them in and know that's how people will play around them, the better it is. So I applaud Andy for his efforts there. Sure, Kyle could have still gone on a run just the same. And so I don't think it's worth shaking it up as much, but it also exemplified how Andy has an idea of how this game is playing, but he doesn't have the traction to like get it going. Like multiple times, Andy has been like, I am going to choose who goes next. And then it's somebody he isn't picking.
Yeah. Tiffany, what about for you? Do you think that this was the right call to go after Kyle?
No, I would personally have gone after Genevieve, just because, at least from the other perspective, not if I was Kyle, of course, but I do feel like I feel like Genevieve is more of a wiggly player, right? Like, I forget who it was. It might have been Caroline that said it. Or no, it was Teeny that was talking about threats that are big and out there and in your face, and threats that are like working behind the scenes. Kyle is only a threat if he wins immunity. Once that does or does not happen, threat level neutralized. Genevieve, she's out there, she's having conversations, she's manipulating people, and now we don't have that very strong passion from Sue to get Kyle out. So it's kind of anybody's game at this point. If the Survivor winds blow one way one day and somebody starts to see Genevieve's point as looking a little more appetizing than it did the day before, things could shift. Genevieve is a good talker. Kyle is a little more reserved. That was probably, they should have switched the order of operations.
Yeah,
it's also interesting. The weight of challenge wins is based on the jury. And what's fascinating in a game of Survivor is the people in the game right now are the ones determining how valuable challenge wins are. And so they could ultimately be like, we don't care about challenge wins. And when we get on the jury, we're still not going to care about challenge wins. But it's just a weird dynamic to the game. And so, who knows if it works out for them, if it doesn't. But that's how it went.
I understand why they wanted to get rid of Kyle. And I think this came up more last week. For me, I think the thing about Kyle is that his story, I think, is a little bit more of the threat for me than his, that the fact that he's won the 4 challenges. Like, there wasn't really a plausible scenario where he was going to win 9 challenges in the season and run the table on this thing. But he did have the thing where if you let him get to, close enough and then he gets in the final 3, he's probably going to win because he's had, talked to his whole thing is about his family. He's got small children. And so he's got like the 2 things of that. He's the challenge threat, but he's also this very big jury threat. And not for the reasons that he's played this amazing game. It's because, you're really going to be very tempted to like, wow, this could really, really like change everything in his world. And he's such a good guy. And so, you might be more prone to want to like, he's a threat more for that.
Yeah, but as like Hunter said, that's true throughout the rest of the game. His story is going to be the same yesterday as it was today, as it is tomorrow. We don't know what Genevieve is going to say tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's that was something I noticed whenever he realized he was in a tough spot, was that he still continued to talk about how like good of a guy he was. He went to Andy and was like, this game is so hard for me because I'm not used to this. And they have this heartfelt moment. I'm like, no, like, Kyle, don't seem endearing right now. Like, I don't know, be a jerk or something so that maybe you don't come across as likable and willing to win this game.
So this question that we've been talking about the threats versus the non-threats, I mean, this has been a part of Survivor really all through the 40s. And Tony really started to talk about this when he started to talk about the lions and the hyenas, and the lions needed to stick together. From the perspective of, Sam and Genevieve and Kyle, like what could they be doing now at the point that there are only 3 of them? Is there anything, Tiffany?
I don't know. It's tough. First of all, one of them definitely has to win immunity so that there's only 2 people that they have to worry about. And then and I think the person that needs to win immunity is Genevieve, because if not, her head is on the platter next. Sam might have a little bit of wiggle room because he hasn't done too much. But I feel like they're going to have to like really get in the weeds and almost do a little bit of manipulating and turning people on each other if they are going to shift anything.
Yeah. Hunter, I just think about it sort of like these are like 2 tribes now. You have the tribe of the underdogs versus the tribe of the threats. And it's like, oh, there's nothing you can do. We have 5 and you have 3. I mean, maybe you got to look at it from the perspective of like, if this was like 2 tribes coming together, like who's the person that's at the lowest in the pecking order of the underdogs? Could you get them to come with the threats?
Yeah, I began to think about it, and it's less of a like 2 sides. It's more of like a rock, paper, scissors effect, to where there's the top of the bottom and the bottom of the bottom. There are people who at this moment, if it plays out the way it's going to play out, are unable to win, completely unwinnable unless something crazy happens. And the moment that you realize the threats can't sway the people at the top of the bottom who are going to win, they have to go to the bottom and say, look, you're going to lose this game. Tell me what to do. Boss me around. I have no option. You will gain equity by telling me what to do, by saving my life in this game. You yourself will become the threat. You can't keep giving the people right above you the power to vote us out. Like that's whenever they realized that they weren't biting, they should have gone to the people that they thought had no equity. Genevieve should have said, I know there are people getting drugged to the end. I want to get them out, but I can't. And so now I'm going to use them and make it very clear that they're being drugged to the end. And that's what you can hope happens, but it takes a lot of convincing.
You know, this post-merge game in this season also has been, and I think the season has been very fun, and I like all the players, but all the votes have been completely lopsided. That this episode was 6-1 to 1. That we haven't really had, with the exception of like vote splits with Sierra and Sam, that there haven't been any close votes that we've had in this second half of the game. And it's just been a lot of everybody, you know, if this was Big Brother, you know, we'd say that everybody's just voting with the house. Nobody wants to be really doing anything different. Do you see that also, Tiffany?
Absolutely. And I find it, I mean, it's not confusing. It's very easy to understand why everybody's doing it, but it's like you said, people who are going along with this, you're either at the top of the bottom or the bottom of the bottom. And if you're at the bottom of the bottom, you have to realize at some point, like, you're literally just being used as a number. So are you going to do anything to change, or are you going to be taken to the final as a lamb for the slaughter? Mm-hmm. But everybody's kind of playing scared, except for the people that everybody's trying to get out. But I mean, what do? Either you play for real, except for Rachel. Rachel's doing a good job of avoiding that. But
I don't even want to say, I don't think I would say that they're playing scared. It's like everybody's playing like very smart, but like very like everybody's like thinking about the game in the exact same way of like,
there's a lot of sharing of information. Mm-hmm. Like everybody always knows who's going home, unless it's like the person who's going home and their closest ally. I'm like, you know, where's the pizzazz? Like some fireworks up in there.
Yeah, come on. Even though it's Thanksgiving, we can have fireworks, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hunter, is there something that you feel like that these players watch? I think the last vote that they watched, I believe, was Tiffany.
Oh.
I think so. So basically, they watched through, you know, through the final 8 of Survivor 46. Do you feel like there was any takeaways from your season that's caused this season to turn out the way it is? That was the last thing in their minds right before they played?
Yeah, well, we saw it way back whenever Gabe talked about the whole idols. Like, I don't want to be like those people. And we got that lovely flashback cameo. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. They're kind of steering clear of advantages as far as they can. I mean, they gave up all their shots in the dark. They're like, we don't want these things. We'd rather have rice. And so that has been
crazy.
That has been an interesting twist to it. But I will say, like, there has to be some freedom in knowing that all I've got left is my social game. All I've got left is the conversations I can have, instead of, because that's where I was just questioning, should I play this, or should I really just lean into relationships? Where do I go on this? And to get back to the previous question of, are they playing scared? Are they playing the best? 13 or 12 is a lot of people to come into the merge with, and to really make moves or to like make your stand that early when there are that many people left in the game is hard to do, to put yourself on the opposite side. I felt that pressure of like, if I can just get, and I think 7 is going to all blow open. I think stuff's really going to start happening after this, because you have such small numbers that you can make things move, but it's hard to swing a vote a certain way when there's that many people. So it's like, I just got to get on the train. Otherwise I'm going to really be singled out.
Yeah. Tiffany, you talked about how it was crazy when they all gave up their shots in the dark. What did you make of that? Was that a good trade for the players or for Jeff?
That was great for Jeff. Terrible. Well, good for some players, bad for others, right? So there are some players who, you know, they don't care about that shot in the dark. Players like Sue. Mm-hmm. Sue's name hasn't been being thrown around too much, except for when she said like Kyle wrote it down or something like that. But for the people like the Sams and the Genevieves to willingly give up their shot in the dark to feed the people that are trying to send them home is nuts. Like, Sam, you knew they were trying to send you home. I don't care what hot stuff Gabe was talking. Why are you giving up your shot in the dark? Granted, Gabe ended up going home that day, but to know that you are an active target and to give up your lifeline for some rice to fill the bellies of the people that are trying to send you home It's absolutely insane.
That is a good point because, for the players that are like, okay, we're going to put all of the votes on, Kyle tonight. It's going to be Kyle. It's going to be Sam. Just the threat of them like, well, that's it. I'm playing the shot in the dark tonight. And it's like, oh my God, now what do? We got to put the thing on somebody else. And then, that could create an opening where potentially they could end up coming up with a different plan.
Weirdly enough, I think both you and I, Tiffany, would actually have appreciated the shot in the darks being gone for our season because we had an idol. And what it does is, I will say,
we haven't even played it though.
The past episode was very clear. They were very forthright about who was going home. Like, they weren't really being super like secretive about it. But when there's a shot in the dark always there, you have to speak in code and you have to keep it a mystery for risk of it. But if that is removed, there almost has seemed, at least this past episode, where there's more information flowing. Like, Andy basically told Kyle, I'm doing the best I can, but it's looking like I'm not going to be able to have enough numbers. And like that, I think maybe somebody would have come up to us and been like, hey, which maybe they did to a certain extent, but it feels
definitely
like
not me. Didn't nobody tell me?
Yeah, nobody came to you.
Nobody told me nothing.
That's true.
But I would argue that like it only works if people don't know you have an idol. They're not going to come out and say
that's true because
they knew one of our idols was a secret.
Mine was until the day I went
told Venus.
The day I went home. I know. Okay, we don't have to have.
We don't.
All right, moving on.
Okay. Yes.
Next thing. Next
he was
thing.
trying to get something going. Come on.
I get it. We ended up in the same spot.
All right. But Hunter, you brought up Andy talking to Kyle. Now, I thought this was very interesting when they rolled the credits. Okay. Andy votes for Genevieve at this tribal council. Was Andy not in 100% on what they were doing? Did he make that promise to Kyle of, hey, I'm not, my targets are I forget what he said, Sam and Genevieve, and then and you're not one of my next targets. And so was this jury management?
I have a feeling we're going to find out next episode because they've done that a lot. But yeah, I could see it being jury management, or in the very off chance that Kyle has an idol or something. I guess the chance isn't zero. And so one of those two things, jury management, he's trying to win Kyle over, or he's just making sure if something crazy does happen by chance that we're still in control of it.
Is that what you think too, Tiffany?
Yeah, I'm actually on the jury management train, specifically because they chose to show us that conversation that he had with Kyle, where he was like, I said, I'm not going to write your name down. And if you're that confident that Kyle is about to go home and he's about to be sitting in the jury, why would you write his name down if you know he's going home anyway?
Yeah. Can I ask you both about the perspective of the jury? And I know that, your season has, a somewhat controversial ending and how the jury ends up, making the decision, not from, your particular votes. But can you talk a little bit about how, what the jury is listening for when they're sitting there at these tribal councils, and like how much does pandering the contestants are trying to, say things to like curry favor with the jury? Like, does that stuff work?
To a certain extent, I will say yes, only because I can say with certainty that Kenzie definitely locked in my vote with certain things that she said during different tribal councils, and just kind of letting me know that, like, I had your back. Like, I mean, granted, you see more things 360 once you watch the season, but for me specifically, I was paying attention to two things. One, how are you moving about me when you were out there? And two, how are you playing this game? And to be honest, while I think Charlie played an amazing game, I was not privy to a lot of the moves that he made until I watched the season back. If Charlie would have done a better job of kind of explaining that and even pulling other people's cards, I would have, me personally, I can only speak for me, I would have been more inclined to kind of like lean that way. And I even told Charlie post game, I'm like, hey, in that moment where Kenzie was pandering to me the day after I went home, when she said, I cried, my girl didn't go home. If you would have pulled her card right then and there on the spot and said, but Kenzie, you were in on the plan, we left you out, you would have locked me in.
That's so interesting. Because I think that we talk so much about at the final tribal council to do this. But Tiffany, should players need to be making their case like and laying
way
these things
before
out
final
way
tribal.
before?
Way before.
It's too much. It's
Way
overload
before.
at the final tribal council.
It's very much overload. I was listening from the day I got put on the jury bench, and I was just collecting information. By the time final tribal comes, it's like it almost feels rushed, and it's like you're trying to cram so much into such a small speech that some things get lost in translation.
Yeah, I'll say for me at least, it's hard to gauge how well you're doing from the jury bench because a lot of people are speaking in code. Charlie was really managing his threat level super well, but you have a great opportunity to lose respect from the jury. Like, by the way, like lots of answers that are just too off the wall or too much like, I'm just here for a good time, or I'm not like, I remember Liz said that she was in the at the back of the bus now, and it's like don't say that to us because that becomes our reality. That's all we've got to go on. And so, while I don't think you can necessarily get too far ahead with pandering to the jury, you can definitely lose some momentum if you just look like you're there trying to survive another vote.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff because I think we talk so much about managing your threat level, but I don't think that we really talk too much about, making your case to the jury about what you're doing before you get to the final three. I feel like that we've always talked about it sort of like, okay, the game is sort of like you're doing the magic show, and then at the final tribal council is, okay, this is how I did all the tricks. But, to lay out, like, to breadcrumb the jury a little bit throughout the course of the season, especially as you get closer to the end. I think that that's pretty good too. And I, now that I'm talking about it, I feel like that there are some instances of players sort of like doing that at like the final 6, final 5 tribal councils, and sort of like setting the stage for the final 3.
That happened with Charlie with the final 6 and the final 5 vote. I think he lost a lot of steam at those tribal councils. He didn't seem like he was as in control of those two. And I think that's what lost him a lot of votes. But then you have other people. I know Ben was frustrated that he felt like he didn't have an opportunity at the end. But it was like one of those things where throughout the tribal councils, it felt like we didn't see you in those. And so it's hard to keep you in the same range as Charlie and Kinsey, who are way more visible.
Okay, we haven't talked much about Caroline right now, and I think that Caroline is in such a great position. I loved what we saw from her in the episode where she talked about how, Gabe had his idea of what he wanted to do and how he wanted to get to the final 3, but that's not what she came here to do. And this was her dream, to be out here on Survivor. I thought it was just really incredible stuff. And then I loved how she got back together with Sue and patched things up after the Gabe vote and got Sue really back on board. Tiffany, I really feel like that out of the underdogs, I think that Caroline might be set up best.
I don't know if she's set up best, but she is set up well, for sure. That conversation with her and Sue was very interesting because I had a different take on it. I was trying to figure out how much of that conversation was a finesse. I'm like, is she like laying it on a little thick here to play at Sue's heartstrings because she knows the type of person that Sue is, and that's the way to connect with her? Now, granted, I'm not saying it was untrue, but I think that Caroline is a very smart player, and she knew that to get back in Sue's good graces, she was going to have to lay it on a little thicker than usual. But I think she's playing a great game, and I think she understood from her perspective that getting Gabe out was necessary because Sue was like attached at the hip to Gabe, and that was going to crack the game open for her.
Yeah, I like to compare it with the conversation that Genevieve and Teeny had when they came back. I think Caroline did a phenomenal job with that, whether she was sincere or not. She made the conversation about herself and about how she felt like she was getting drugged and how she didn't want that to happen to her. It was never about like, Sue, we have to be against each other. I mean, Genevieve mentioned that, like, Teeny, you're going to turn against me. And so it made it almost not a challenge, but it made it very clear Genevieve is thinking as a game and we're all different pieces, versus Caroline entering that conversation and wanting Sue just to see her as a person and what she was trying to accomplish in the game. And it left the door open for working together, while Genevieve's and
Slammed it shut.
did not seem like it was going to end that way. And so I have to give props to Caroline in that she did a great job in managing that relationship. And correct me if I'm wrong, she knows about Sue's idol, doesn't she?
Yeah. Right?
Well, I think she suspects about Sue's idol. I don't know.
I thought Sue told
I
her.
thought they had a conversation.
No, I'm not 100% sure about this, so
I'm
the
like
chat will verify.
85% sure that Sue told her. I'm pretty sure she did.
Yeah. So we'll get an answer on that from the chat on the Sue's idol. But I wanted to talk about Sue a little bit, where we had in the episode that they talked about how I think Genevieve might have said. They're saying that Caroline told Sue she knows. Okay. So Caroline 100% knows.
Okay.
So Sue and Andy are being talked about as players that are 100% players are trying to get them to the final 3. What do you do about these players like a Sue who's like a lock for the final 3 right now, and everybody feels like, oh yeah, I want to get to the final 3 with Sue? Like, how do you untangle that? Because everybody wants to keep them because everybody feels like that they could beat her.
If you are really anybody, you get Sue gone. Like, you gotta send Sue home because Sue is. Well, I was interested to see what type of game Sue would play post Gabe, but then watching this episode, it was like, oh, so instead of attaching yourself to Gabe, now you just attach yourself to Rachel. So it's just the same thing. Now you just blindly loyal to somebody else because they told you a secret. Sue has to go if anybody wants to free up that seat in the final 3, because if they don't, she will be sitting in it.
Yeah. Now, I won't name names, but I kind of feel like that this was going on in Survivor 46 too. That there's like people that's like, okay, well,
oh yes, no, 100%. Hunter, please.
Trouble. I ain't trying to get
I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. We don't need to get anybody in trouble.
We don't name no names, but
yeah. Okay.
Yes. But what do you do? I kind of feel like that this is a problem that we have.
You see where we ended up.
Yeah, if we have that we have our players, not to say like, who's better and who's worse, but if we sort of like have these Survivor seasons and then we get kind of like bottlenecked with a lot of players who really can't win, all getting towards the end of the game, like I feel like that, players need to start to recognize like, okay, we got to just take these players out because they are blocking the road.
Right. And
that was the plan.
That
was the plan.
Okay, we'll preface it by saying this is all perception. So it's not a reflection of anybody's individual game ability. It's a perception in the season that they're in. But so what has to happen with those players is the threats have to recognize them before they start going after each other. But the moment that the threats have lost numbers, they've got to try to there should be 2 people whispering in their ears. Rachel should be whispering, we have to get rid of threats, otherwise they're going to destroy us. And they have to keep that facade of them being equal. While the threats have to be whispering in Sue's ear, you are being used. There's no shot you win unless you flip and you come with us. It reminds me of Hayden. So the blood versus water with Hayden and Tyson, both fighting over Sierra. And Hayden is just laying it on like, you will not win with him. You will not win with him. And Tyson is getting so frustrated about it because he knows it's true, but he's got to keep it. And eventually they have the crazy rock draw and it was great, but that's what has to happen. The people who are the threats have to convince them that you are not going to win in this spot. And what's tough with Sue in this situation is Kyle, like that bridge has been burned. And so as long as Genevieve is working with Kyle, Sue is not coming over. Andy, I don't think realizes the dire position he's in, but if he did, I don't know what happens, but it looks like in the next one, Andy's catching wind of, I am in a weird spot and I have to start working with other people. So it seems like he may branch over to Genevieve and to Sam because Andy does seem like he's got game wits about him. He's just in a rough spot.
Yeah. And I wonder, going back to what you're talking about with trying to convince somebody to come over, and, Genevieve has sort of like tied one hand behind her back of like, okay, I'm not going to make these emotional connections with a player, but, these logical arguments aren't going to help change the way that people are feeling about things. Like it's going to take some kind of like emotional manipulation. Like it wasn't a logical argument that caused Eric Reichenbach to give up the necklace. Like that was like hardcore, like emotional manipulation that happened. And so, for these players to like figure out a way out of this hole, like it's not going to be just talking about the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about Rachel's journey a little bit. Now, Hunter, do you wish that you would have got this journey
Oh
instead
my
of the one
goodness.
you got?
Absolutely. Oh my! I didn't realize I would have to have rote memorization planned there, and so that's on me. But I would have loved that one. That looks like the ads that show up on my phone every now and then.
It does.
I
I literally play those games all the time.
I could do that. Also, I love the timer method. I wonder
It was
if that's
so cool.
if Jelinski broke their hourglass, and so they had to come up with a new method that couldn't be destroyed.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
That was such a great sequence of like there was so much drama with the anchors and the ropes and the thing coming off. It was like an action move, like Mission Impossible. And then
it was like high stakes. My heart was beating watching it.
Yeah, she's moving the stuff around, and then she gets it. She pulls the thing out, and then the table like goes off, and she's like, "Bye." It's great.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
That's amazing.
Okay, I will say the advantage, which I'm not opposed to, did feel kind of lackluster after all that. Like I was expecting something bigger this late into the game, but I'm fine with it. Yeah, just to block the vote.
I mean, that is pretty big given how many people are left in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but
it would have been bigger if it was like somebody else that got it and not Rachel. I think it only seems not big because Rachel's in like a cozy position. But if like a Genevieve or a Sam would have gotten that, it would have been major.
Right, they still would have been out of the numbers because it would have been 4 versus 3 then. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so Hunter, this is what I was wondering with this vote block that she got. So Rachel comes back, says, "Hey, bad news, everybody. I lost my vote." What if she didn't tell anybody that she got the vote block? They go to tribal council and she just blocks somebody's vote. There ends up being only 7 votes. Rachel's story is airtight.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because she lost her vote.
But when did they come back?
But she still had to go up to the
thing. Wait. So do they vote and the vote never comes out, or they go up to vote and they say you can't vote? Like, how does it work?
I think you go up there and take a parchment that says you can't vote.
Yeah, she goes up there and then she gets her thing, says, "Oh, I can't vote. Go back to your seat." And now if somebody, I don't know if people can, like, you would know better than me about, can you see, did she pick up the pen and write a name down, scribble a name down?
No, you can't see anything.
Okay.
You can't see
anything.
So,
yeah, I think I really feel like that she had the cover if she wanted to say.
So you're saying, okay, so she could have, let me make sure I'm following. You said she could have blocked her own vote?
No, blocked somebody else's vote. Like, so she goes up there. Now, again, it doesn't really make sense in the way that this actual vote transpired, but like if it was a close enough vote, that she could say, "Hey, I voted." Like, what are you talking about? I voted for Genevieve. And then, somebody else's vote got blocked.
Well, she would say that she lost her vote, and then her vote.
I'm sorry. I lost my vote. What are you talking about? Don't blame me.
Oh, okay. I'm following. So, like, she could have voted, blocked somebody else's vote, and then pretended that. But also, Jeff probably would have announced that there was something used.
Or would someone have
said, no, I thought they said that they weren't going to say.
Okay, that's where the question is if, let's say Tiffany blocked my vote, do I know my vote? If I go up there to say your vote has been blocked,
I think you come back like, "Hey, they didn't read my vote."
Or is it just thrown out? Like it's just thrown in the trash?
No, there's definitely going to be some type of parchment there that says you cannot vote, go back to your seat, or your vote has been blocked.
I don't know. But I will say it becomes not infinitely, but a lot more powerful if they have the shot in the dark, because you take someone's vote away, then they can't use their shot in the dark.
Yeah. So
it would have been stronger if they still had their shots in the dark.
Okay. The chat seems to say that in the booth it would say their vote is blocked.
Yeah,
okay, so
it would be on the parchment.
Did this
because
happen
when you can't vote, it says it.
I don't think it's ever happened.
Or is the chat just
that somebody's? I think that they're just going based off of what's usually going on in a booth when you don't have a vote or when you can't vote. There's always a parchment that says you can't vote, you're not allowed to vote, somebody stole your vote. Like there's something.
But it does feel clunky, because does that mean I get to go vote first, so then I could pick whose I block so they know who to give it to? Because I don't announce it, or do I have to say it before? Because how do they put that parchment out? Like if you're voting before me, Tiffany, because it's always random, but I want to block your vote, you have to be like, "Hey, wait, Jeff, just a second. I need to run up there real quick and do something." Nothing conspicuous. Just
I think how I imagined it going was Jeff announces before anybody goes up to vote, like, "Hey, somebody has played a secret advantage and XYZ, your vote is blocked. So everybody else, y'all go vote, but You sit down here with me.
Yeah, I
And they
don't know.
don't know
It
who
would
did
be
it.
interesting to see the mechanics of it.
Even then, because do I have to say who's going to get blocked before tribal council? Like, what if it's a live tribal council?
Live tribal council, yeah. I feel like
It's
you would
weird.
say
Yeah, I don't
it in
know.
the booth.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe does Jeff say after the votes were counted, like, all right, Sam, who did you vote for? Like, all right, Sam's vote's not going to
Yeah,
count.
Ripped it
yeah.
up.
Or like everybody gets to vote, right? Everybody gets to vote.
Mhm.
And then right before he reads them, he'll say, so-and-so's vote was blocked, so it's not in this container. It's like they know what our votes look like before we put it in the container. So it's like as soon as that person walks out, they just take it back out.
Okay.
If Rachel says she wants to
All right.
block that
The
person's vote.
chat is saying that it says that when the person is blocked, they will find out when they go to the podium to vote.
So they have
Okay.
to do it before.
So he
tribal
got to announce it before they go up to vote. Then, like I
Mhm.
said,
But
Yeah.
but then everyone knows if Rachel's like, "Hey, I want to block Tiffany's vote." Like, when
so
does?
it's probably not an anonymous advantage. Then it's probably.
But it
something
says it was anonymous. It says they wouldn't know who did it. But anyways, I don't.
I was about to say,
know.
well, this is speculation.
Well,
We
okay,
never
so then
gonna
in
know.
this case, okay, could she block Kyle's vote? And then Kyle, he's not going to be able to tell anybody what happened. And then she
Yeah.
votes out Kyle. It's only 7 votes. Nobody's any the wiser.
Yeah, man.
I don't think it makes sense for her to use it.
Mhm.
Honestly,
Yeah, save it for
If
another
she-
day.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
nice with the numbers is that her vote was probably lost in the bottom. Like the majority has been reached before all the votes were read. And so she's probably like, my vote just didn't get counted. It wasn't pulled out. Who knows?
Exactly.
Okay. I'm going to bring in some questions from the listeners, but let me just
Okay.
also mention here, of course, it's Thanksgiving week, and that means Black Friday is around the corner. We've got a great special
Ooh.
going on for Black Friday, and we've never done this before. We are doing a special 47% off your first month of being a patron with us. Try it out. Give it a shot. Use the promo code Happy Holidays, 47% off your first month for new subscribers at robbinswebsite.com/patron. Okay? That's also a new power that we've never given away.
I
Still
love how
figuring it out,
perfectly the name fits in Happy Holidays.
Happy
That was perfect.
Holidays.
Happy Holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, would you two prefer that we called the season 40 several?
No.
I was wanting that to end so bad.
No. Please let it die.
But Jelinski is a legend. And I
He
do
is.
think they had to change the whole timer on the barge because he broke their hourglass. I will say that.
Are you surprised they
Listen.
haven't said 40 several on the show at all this season?
That is interesting. I am surprised.
I'm not surprised because I mean, it doesn't mean anything to them. Like it means stuff to us. Like, yeah, you're gonna say that and we're all gonna laugh and giggle but you say that to them, they just got out there. Do they even know 40 several is a thing? Because they just finished watching this. They didn't even finish the whole season.
They did because it was a pole hanging challenge whenever Charlie made the joke about it. And they had the big laugh. He said, wait till season 40 several.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I don't think it stuck with them.
Okay,
No.
here's another question for you two about Spicy Jeff. Jeff was at his most spicy, I felt like, during Survivor 46. I thought we were going to come in and Jeff was going to be super spicy in Survivor 47. I feel like he hasn't been too spicy.
I agree.
You all
I've
brought
really
out the
been
most
watching this
spicy
season,
version
and
of
I'm
Jeff.
like, dang, like, what did we do? What did we do that made Jeff want to turn up on us? They getting extra rides, they got double immunities, they getting extra awards, auctions. I'm like, well, we just like the problem child or something because
they got
what in the
special
world?
intertribal rewards. They
Survivor
got
Social
the
Hour.
auction.
Like
We got
crazy.
Sassy Jeff.
Mhm.
Literally.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I think maybe it's just because we just want chaotic energy with us. So it kind of maybe it seeped into Jeff and
Yeah.
everybody else there. Maybe they're not nicer and more calm. So I don't know.
All right. Let's take some questions from the chat. Dolly has a question. Why would Kyle vote for Teeny? What happened there?
I think that they just left Kyle out and Kyle was just like, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just gonna write Teeny name down. I think that was like a Hail Mary, like whatever happens, happens.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think he was very caught up on the I'm working with Sam and I'm working with Genevieve and I'm not going to write their name down. And he probably knew Genevieve and Teeny had some conflict. And so, although you'd wonder why he didn't write Sue down, but obviously I don't think Kyle had the same animosity towards Sue that Sue had towards Kyle.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What'd you think about Kyle when he talked about it? Like, you have the opportunity to do like a move that everybody would applaud.
Oh, like a crowd pleasing
A
move.
crowd
Yeah,
Yeah,
pleasing
like
that
move.
was
don't do
it.
the
That's right.
simple easy thing. Do something like spicy. But they did the simple easy thing.
Yeah, just keep Kyle.
I mean, yeah, it
Everybody
was
would
a
go love
hard,
it.
like he had a hard sell at Tribal. They seemed like they were pretty set. I did feel for him. I was like, man, he's in a rough spot.
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting question from Paolo. Why do you think people in the game perceive Andy as a GOAT while the show is portraying him as a contender? Where is the disconnect? So I think this is pretty interesting to talk about because that Andy has had, this great story, and Andy tells us about, he understands his position. He's very self-aware about everything. But the other players have seemed to be really stuck on that Andy is somebody that we're dragging to the end. What do you make of that, and what can Andy do?
I don't think Andy should do anything. I think Andy is well, let me take that back, because the people in the game, how they perceive him right now is important, especially if they're going to the jury. But I do think that the reason they are perceiving him the way that they are is because he's allowing them to. He's making all these moves undercover. He's explaining his thought processes. He's doing all this to the cameras and not to his fellow players.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, their perception of him is the same Andy that came in from the merge with, hanging on to Sierra and Sam's coattails and having anxiety attacks on the beach. And they don't realize that he's kind of growing into this Survivor player, and he's not really doing anything to change their perception of him.
Yeah. And he's told us many times, like, nobody knows the game I'm playing. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And I think he's trying to change it, Hunter. I think he's trying to, like, okay, let's vote out Genevieve. I'm ready to make a big move. And people are not necessarily following his lead.
Yeah, he's really having trouble getting traction. I mean, like, even in this, he was making great cases as for why Genevieve should go, but it just was not gaining any kind of traction. But I think he's smart enough to realize that, because in the cut for like the next time on Survivor, he seems like he has switched over to where he's giving Genevieve and Sam some kind of hope, and that may end up hurting him in the end. But he is at least trying to make a move to make himself more visible.
Yeah, I think it's been so interesting to follow him this season. Where do we think this story is ending? Does Andy get to the final three?
I'm gonna say no. I think this is just pure speculation, probably totally wrong, but I think he tries to make a move. I think he really tries to make something happen with Genevieve and Sam, and I think the foreshadowing of the four girls going to the final four, it may be as soon as next episode, whenever he gets caught up in it.
Yeah. What do you think, Tiff?
I actually am inclined to agree with that. I think because Andy is starting to realize that, this perception of him is what it is, he might try to do something that feels a little bigger than what he's capable of doing right now, or he's going to try to make like a flashy move that might come back to bite him in the butt. But I don't think it's giving final three energy.
Yeah.
Not right now. Not based on what I've seen in the preview.
Tiffany, did you keep up with Big Brother this summer?
I did.
Yeah,
I
feel like, and we talked about this back when he first had the meltdown on the mat, and we talked about, could Andy be the Angela of Survivor? And I wonder if Andy ends up getting picked off at like even as early as next week of like or final 5, final 6, and that they have to take him out because he's made himself into a threat. And there's like a victory for Andy in like, I was a threat that I worked all my way back from, that nobody thought I was a final 3 GOAT. And now they had to take me out because I was going to win.
I don't know if I would give Andy the Angela card, because the thing about Angela was a firecracker out in the open. My girl was causing drama right in front of your face. She did not care, and she was blowing up any and everybody's game. Andy is causing, like, He's causing rifts. He's wreaking havoc, but he's doing this behind the scenes where nobody can see.
Yeah.
Nobody knows
No,
that he's doing this.
He's not messy like
No, Angela was so
but she
openly
was so
messy.
happy. She was a threat. She was like that she sat in the chair with Julie. She was like, I'm a threat, Julie. She was so happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe next week that's what happens. He looks like he's about to get messy. Like just from the preview of like something that's about to happen, he is in it, and maybe he'll have that little redemptive arc. Because this is like Caroline said, she's like, I would rather go out playing my own game and basically be seen as a threat as opposed to being taken to the end and not being valued in the game I played.
Okay.
This is true.
Here's a question from Sabetta Saurus wants to know, for Hunter, similar to Kyle, you won or went far in multiple challenges at the start of the merge that had the same general skill set. How difficult would it have been to look at something that you knew you can win and guarantee safety, but know you should throw it?
Oh, man. So I would assume the throwing would happen earlier in the season, and I should have done that. I should have. The dynamics at NAMI needed to be worked out in a private setting before we got to a merge. We need to have had a group counseling session with Jeff before merge. But it is hard. Whenever I got my clue to the idol that I had to lose in order to get the second clue, I talked to the camera and was like, there's a good reason for me to throw it. But the only reason I would not throw it is if there's food. And then Jeff put out all the treats and all the pastries and stuff, and I couldn't give it up. But there is definitely merit to throwing a challenge. However, I will say, in my mind, you can never predict how a vote will go. And so I wanted to make sure that I was giving my best self out there. And, if I'm going to lose, I would rather it be because people saw me as a threat in challenges as opposed to me throwing a challenge and then randomly catching a stray and going home, because I know that I can't sleep now thinking about some of the things I did, but I can't imagine what it would be like that way. And so it is a very hard balance to have.
Yeah.
To figure out.
Well, that's throwing individual immunity challenges, but you mentioned about the NAMI tribe having issues to work out. That this season we saw all the tribes come in and have sort of like pretty level numbers, and it's been pretty wide open as far as things go. Do you have any thoughts about how to handle the throwing challenges in the pre-merge part of the game?
Oh, I mean, like I said, I would be in favor of it if I was to replay the current season like I was just on. But it is so hard to predict. I don't know what the dynamics are because you've never gone to tribal. There's still a lot of questions in the air. And with something like the shot in the dark, you're just unsure what happens. I mean, what was it, 44 when was it Brandon who went out first because of an idol? No, sorry. They voted for him.
They tried
first.
to get him out first.
They tried to get him out first. And so like it's so unpredictable in that. But I will say there's merit in going to tribal before the merge. A lot of merit in it.
Well, what do you think about, these tribes that, you get to the merge and then you start taking out the people from your own tribe and then you end up being less threatening, right?
Well,
is that an idea?
I would love to have thought that, but that's not what happened with my tribe. Well, we all started whenever we got split up and I was by myself with the Yanu on ours, and they voted Soda out. You would hope that this would cause this, Nami's not dangerous. But it just continued because then Tevin went and then I went. I mean, I love the idea of it because they did it with the Blue Tribe this season. Like, hey, we know we have to get rid of one of ours. Otherwise, it's going to look like we're in trouble. And that conversation was happening whenever they had Rachel in their grasp to vote her out. Should we still maybe take out one of our 5? There is definitely merit to it just on a numbers point. But, I mean, Tiffany can attest to it. Like, NAMI was in a point where it wasn't like NAMI as a cohesive group that people were afraid of. There was no fear.
NAMI was a mess express.
It was bad. It was
were you scared of them?
No.
Okay.
No. The only person on NAMI that I was scared of was Hunter. And that's only because Hunter was a challenge beast. But as far as like NAMI being NAMI strong, it was very clear from the moment we stepped on that beach, there was nothing strong about NAMI.
I mean, I don't know how he won challenges. Like, I don't understand it.
My first 3 conversations at the Merge Beast was from 3 NAMI people telling me not to trust other NAMI members. And I'm like, oh, they got problems over here. They hate each other.
Oh, dear. Just in time for Thanksgiving. To have the whole family together.
Thanksgiving, Nami at Applebee's. Is that happening?
Yes, we need to make that happen. Bring the cameras.
Y'all stay safe. I'll be home. Let me know how it goes.
Kevin has a question. In the last episode, we saw Andy and Sue bond. Could the wild plan alluded to in the preview be Andy using his relationship with Sue to turn her against one of Teeny, Caroline, and Rachel? Could Andy flip Sue?
Not a chance. Not a chance on this planet. I think that Sue is like one of those players that's so loyal that once she decides she's loyal, if you even bring up the name of the person that she's loyal to, you're out of there. And that might be Andy's ticket home. If he tries to get Sue to turn on like a Rachel, somebody who Sue has already pledged her loyalty to because she shared this huge secret with her, she could go back and tell Rachel like, hey, Andy just said your name. I know we locked in and everything. And that could completely blow up Andy and Rachel's relationship. But there's not a chance that Sue flips.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of Andy's relationships that he's doing a great job building, sadly, they're the other way of what he's thinking, where most of these people see Andy as like expendable or like someone I can sit with. And so they're willing to make these relationships with him and work with them. And so, from the preview, it looks like Andy's actually working with Sam and with Genevieve. It seems like that's the thing going on, but maybe it is. I'd be happy to see something like that.
I'd be surprised. Andy's so locked in on Genevieve, and she said his name, and it got reported back to him.
Yeah, that's what's so weird is I'm like, wow, okay, that's where I'm like, maybe Andy's catching wind that he's not a threat at this moment and has to do something drastic.
But is it possible? I mean, we heard it also in the preview. It's like, hey, this is the 4 women going to the end. Like, does he catch wind of that?
Maybe.
I think he's savvy enough to pick up on that, and he's like realizing this is not going to work for me.
Yeah,
but trying to break that up could really hurt him more than it could help at this point.
Mm-hmm. And shouldn't the women let Genevieve in their alliance? Come on.
Not if Teeny has anything to say about it.
Oh, no.
Teeny has a word.
Teeny is tired of Genevieve's mess. And
Genevieve try that? Like, hey, come on, women's alliance. Let's do this.
Yeah, right. Genevieve been playing in Teeny face since the beginning of the game. She is not even trying to work with her no more.
No. Doesn't want to hear it. Okay. Elizabeth wants to know, are they really underdogs if they have the solid majority and all the power? Can the Kyles and Sams and Genevieves take underdogs back from the underdogs?
I think that the reason we're referring to them as underdogs is strictly from like the challenge perspective, like the stronger players or the people that have been put out in the forefront that have been winning challenges and pushing votes and stuff like that. Whereas this is a collective of individuals that are deciding things together. So they were underdogs, but when we are using the term underdogs, we're talking about like the individual and not the collective.
Yeah. Do you think it hurt them that Rachel was the one that won immunity? Because I feel like that Rachel could be the one person that those 3 could have started to, I don't want to say gaslight, but to start to like really like, hey, you know who's the real big threat around here? Rachel. Rachel's the threat, and get somebody to like, you say it enough that maybe somebody starts to buy it, but then she wins immunity, and it's like, okay, well now we're really screwed.
Or, maybe they say, well, it works out because this just adds to the fact that she's a threat. It's like, Kyle, we hate it for you. It ain't going to work this round. But next time, maybe we can.
We need to keep Kyle because he has to beat Rachel.
Yeah. And Genevieve was already pitching Rachel, wasn't she? Genevieve has been saying that Rachel is a threat. We got to get Rachel. We got to get Rachel. So maybe she brings that back up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Who's the biggest challenge threat now? A Tribal Sam seemed to imply that he's going to be viewed as a physical threat. But what even has he done to back up bona fides like that?
It sounds like Q a little bit.
I was just about to say it's giving Q. No. To be honest, I think that as far as challenges go, the playing field is pretty even now. Kyle was beasting. Sue has won, before, but there's no, like, in my mind, there's no front runner that's going to go out there and be like, oh yeah, they're definitely winning. I mean, granted, Sam is strong, but he has not proven himself to be a winner.
Yeah.
I think with this shift, because it's bound to happen where it's like the obstacle course finished with the puzzle. Rachel, I think, is going to shine in that. Her like pre-merge performance with puzzles was, at least everything that I can remember, was pretty phenomenal. So she'll have advantage in some of those things, and so she may actually go on a little bit of a run, and then they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Hunter, did you see any puzzles that you thought were particularly interesting this season? Did they do any new stuff?
Well, okay, so I would just mention the different ones that I like. I like all the puzzles. I find every puzzle fascinating. I love that they took the flame puzzle and just made it bigger. They're like, take the same idea and make it bigger.
Was that the one that they couldn't get one piece into?
Yeah.
When Rome was sitting in front of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was tough. I like the ones where they stack the different shaped cubes with the knobs that stuck down and fit into holes. Really a cool one. Those are all fun. But my favorite thing, or I thought would be more of a factor than it actually was, where they had to build that circle and then throw sandbags through it.
Okay, that was pretty cool.
I thought it was going to be like a more of a factor, but it happened like it only fell over once, and that was kind of it. And so I was a little bummed that wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it would be, but it seemed like a really cool idea that they will probably bring back.
What was something that happened this season that had the Survivor 46 group chat blowing up?
Oh, well, see, we love to talk about ourselves, and so they love to talk. Well, mentioning like big mistake was something, and then mentioning the Tempur-Pedic was another thing, and then our cameos, because we're a little conceited like that. We like to somehow make it about us. But I mean, the consensus has been we've been enjoying it. It's been a really fun season.
Yeah. This is a question that came up the other day about, what role is Sierra going to have as the mayor of Ponderosa? And a little bit of this is just like we sort of like get ideas sometimes outside of the game and run with it. Does the first person who is the mayor of Ponderosa, Soda in your case, does that person have a lot of sway over how the jury thinks or operates?
No. All right. I'm not gonna say no. I'm gonna say that was not the case on our season.
Yeah.
I think that the people who come out later in the game actually have more sway because they've been in the game longer and having conversations for much longer that the people that have been at Ponderosa are not privy to. Like, for example, when I left, when Maria left, like people. You can share information with people at Ponderosa that they had no idea about, So I think that actually holds a little more weight because, like we said, sometimes people play their cards so close to the vest. At Tribal Council, you don't really know what's going on. Like, you got to get it from the people that were having the conversations before they left.
Yeah.
I think it might be a factor of like, does the first person out or one of the early people out, when they have very strong feelings about the other players who ultimately make the final two and are just like talking about how, horrible they are to the entire jury, could that be a factor? And I don't get the sense that was Soda.
No, not at all.
No, it's definitely people that come out later that have way more sway and way more power.
Okay.
Yeah. And I find that it's the people that come out later in the game, that's when the animosity has time to build and build and build because you're that much closer. You're that much closer. And it's like by the time you that last person voted out, it's like nervous breakdown energy. Like, I can't believe it. Like, so I wasn't even trying to shut up. Like, I'm just saying, like, you have more time. Like, you don't have as much time to get over it. Like, the longer you're at Ponderosa, the more time you have to sit with your feelings. And the longer you're in the game, the less time you have to deal with those feelings before you go to jury.
That's true.
Yeah. You don't get that time to cope and heal.
Is there anything else that you two have seen from this season that you want to talk about?
I mean, I'm going to talk about this till I'm blue in the face, but I am tight that we didn't have no auction and they had an auction on 45 and 47. And I'm even more tight that the challenge that sent me home with the body weight, they decided to give out 2 immunities for a man and a woman, and they only gave us 1. Because if they would have gave out a man and a woman immunity on that challenge, I would have been safe. So I'm going to talk about that until the day I die, but that's it.
Yeah, it's not right. Did they have a challenge? Did they do one challenge in your season where they gave out immunity to a man and a woman?
No, all of our like double immunities were when we were split in half.
Yeah, we had a double elimination as well. They were getting us out of there. It's
like tearing us up, beating us upside the head.
I will say, I feel like they've eaten more, at least in right at the beginning of the merge, than I felt like
I think there have been more food
way
rewards.
More rewards, way more. I mean, good for them. We was hangry, sad, beat up. But no, it's been fun. I've been enjoying this season so much.
Yeah. Do you like being on this side of it, being alumni who get to talk about what's going on?
I do. I mean, playing the game is fun. You're never going to not want to play the game, but it is enjoyable to watch the season as an alumni because now you have insight and perspective that you never had as a fan. And you have a little bit more empathy for certain situations that you could never imagine as a fan. Because, like Jeff always says, it's so easy to sit and talk crap on the couch. But once you've been out there and you've done it, it's like, dang, that's rough, but I get it. I get it. I did it. Like, you're not as hard on them.
Yeah, it actually took me a little while to get into it because it made my stomach hurt, like thinking about, I can't say that was a bad move because I've made really stupid moves out there and I know why. So it took some of the joy out of that, but then it came back as you're
over it. Yeah.
I've embarrassed myself on national television. Now I can pretend again like I know what's best for what they're doing out there.
And did you both recognize a lot of locations in watching Survivor 47?
Yeah, definitely. Especially like on the idol search, like I'm looking around like I know where that is. I know that location. It's kind of cool because it's like, I was there.
Yeah, and it's fun to see like whenever Andy falls out the first time, you see the group of camera guys that comes over and they get the behind the scenes view and you're like, oh look, I know all those guys. Like I recognize them. That was fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was super fun to go through this all with you both tonight. And do you have any questions for each other?
Hunter and I text all the time, so there's no questions to be had that probably already haven't been discussed today.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, this is such an interesting friendship that you two have of people who were not really like even in the game, unless we missed it. Like,
no, we did not.
Not even friendly in the game.
Well, no, we were friendly. Like, okay, so to give a little backstory, whenever we had to go off on our own, I was by myself away from Nami. Tiffany said the nicest thing to me anyone had ever said in the game. She came up to me, very blunt like she is, and she said, Tim says he wants to write your name down. And I told him, I'm not doing that because I'm not writing your name down. And then she just walked off. I was like, that's the nicest thing I have ever heard. And I'm telling you, I was so locked in with them. But then again, the game happens and people say things that aren't entirely true. And so it kind of splits up. But we did come back and have a conversation before the inevitable doom. But it's like you go and don't read too far into this, but you can see by the closeness of people after the game, how long did they spend longer in the game or they get to spend longer at Ponderosa. Me and Tiffany got to spend a fair amount of time at Ponderosa hanging out and doing whatever. Without the pressure of the game, it does help friendships grow.
Yeah.
I do feel like in the history of Survivor, I feel like that when like threats go out like back to back, like I do feel like that there is like a bond over that. Like
I was praying she went home with her idol. The way.
I was praying on my downfall so bad, it's crazy.
I mean, I was like, thank you. I'm not the only one. And the rest of them were just gifts.
Because for real, I think aside from the fact that Hunter and I have like way more in common than we ever thought, it was the fact that we went out back to back with idols that we were able to kind of just look at each other like, dang, we are dumb as heck. And we just it was like instant friendship. And we just spent the rest of the time at Ponderosa consoling each other and becoming besties.
All right. Well, it's a great story. The chat is all saying like this was so much fun to have you both here together. What about the Amazing Race? Hunter and Tiffany, Amazing Race team.
Hunter and I have already solidified that if we were to ever do the Amazing Race, we would choose one another. There is no other option.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
We would love to. So Amazing Race Team, if y'all out there, Tiffany and Hunter, we want to see what's up.
Okay.
We're the Idle Idiots. That's our name.
Idle Idiots. Good hashtag. All right. Let me tell you about what's coming up. 1 week from tonight, I'll be on the road again in Houston, Texas for a live show. And so very excited about that. If you want to be there with us in person, robisthewebsite.com/Houston. Okay. We had a lot of fun last year in Chicago.
That was fun. Chicago was so much fun. Oh my gosh.
It's a good time for everybody.
It was a great time.
We were out of the game by then, so it was easy for us.
Oh, yeah, it was great. We were having the time of our lives.
All right, then, of course, we're going to have plenty of Survivor coverage coming your way this week. You want to make sure that you are subscribed to WeKnowSurvivor.com for all things Survivor here on RHAP. In just 2 weeks' time, we're going to have our first Survivor 47 Wand-Off, and we're very excited about that. Do you all know about the Wand-Off?
I do not.
That's our Survivor song parody contest.
Wait, what? Song parody?
Song parody contest. And we used to do it a lot in the 30s. And then it's gone away for a little while. But like the auction, we're bringing it back for Survivor 47. And so listeners can submit their Survivor 47 song parodies at robiswebsite.com/Wandoff.
Oh my gosh, that sounds
you have got the wrong 46ers on here to talk about this. I got
Oh my gosh, this is so funny.
Although Tiffany had a rap career, just so.
Oh wow, Hunter! Wow,
yes.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't have a rap career. I made one song.
Yes.
Hunter. Yeah, like wow.
Okay.
No, I made one song. That's it.
All right. That's more than most of us.
Yeah. It's called Money Flowers. It's on Spotify. If anybody in the chat wants to go look it up, I'm proud of it. I made it for an art show in 2019. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Money Flowers? Is this called?
Money Flowers by Tiffany Crazy Cool. Yes.
Okay. Look it up. All right. Then we've also got, our reality TV newsletters.com, The Confessional, where reality stars are writing about the shows they were on. And this week, this was a very topical. I talked about how worst is closer to first. The best place to be is near the bottom after the merge in Survivor. Talked a little bit about this after Gabe went out, and I think it's even more relevant after Kyle went out. So you could read that for free at realitytvnewsletters.com. Then the Survivor Q&A is going to be on episode 11 a.m. appropriately, coming up on Friday. So be there with us for that. We'll send out the link on Patreon, robiswebsite.com/patron. All right. This was such a fun night tonight, and I'm so glad that you both were here with us for this. Tiffany, besides Spotify, what else do you want people to go check out?
Just come hang out with me on Instagram. All my socials are Tiffany Crazy Cool. Let's chat. I got some artwork for sale if you guys want to buy prints.
Oh.
Originals. I sell them all on my website. It's all in my link in bio in my on my Instagram. So go support your girl.
Okay. All right. And what about for you, Hunter?
Yeah, Instagram is the place to find me. It's the @PHMac that I've got with my name handle right there. It's a confusing one, but yeah, Instagram is where I'm at if y'all want to come hang out.
And what are you doing on Instagram? Anything?
I'm doing a lot of building projects. So I teach, but
Hunter's building a house.
Yeah.
Don't be modest.
Really?
I don't.
A house.
Okay. She can't act like she's a fan of it now because earlier she was talking about how I shouldn't be building
I'm
a house.
still skeptical, but you're doing it.
Yes. Why
It's
are you
not my
skeptical,
house.
Tiffany?
Okay, I have to get
Because Hunter didn't go to school to build houses. He's a science teacher.
I teach physics. What else is there to know? Okay, but it's my
He's
brother-in-law.
vibing. Leave him alone, Tiffany.
Yeah. I will take.
All right. I ain't gotta live in it.
Hunter, who will live in this house?
My brother-in-law, or my sister and brother-in-law and their kid, they're gonna come. It's not a very big house, but we're helping them out with that. And then we do stuff with the kids and come and check it out. I show some behind the scenes of some of the Survivor stuff I built with the kids. Tiffany got to come and see some of it. We did this summer.
It was so much fun.
The challenge from this current episode I had built for the kids out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hunter is like, and they're like full scale challenges. This is not like some little rinky dink stuff. I'm talking like huge monuments of challenges in the middle of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
They're insane.
I think the hardest part of that challenge is spelling immunity backwards.
I think for me, as somebody who has played the challenge, I think it gets harder. Like it's the rope.
Yeah,
The balancing of the rope, the higher it
Yeah.
gets, the more tumultuous it is.
Let me give a Survivor hack, Hunter. Okay, Peridium, feel free to use this. Okay, future Survivor player, get it immunity backwards tattooed on your arm.
That is smart.
Think about it.
That is smart. I
about it.
like that. I like
You
that.
know, look, maybe it works. Maybe you need it. Maybe you don't.
You know.
But you know what? I personally would not do that because then I would just constantly be reminded of the fact that I did not play my immunity idol. And it would be a taunt for the rest of my life.
Basically.
Yeah. What does YMM? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This was a fun one. Looking forward to reading your comments. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.